To jumpstart the football conversation here, let's just start baseline. Tell our audience where you're at on Caleb Williams, how you feel about him, how excited you are about him, whatever doubts you might have. Just give us kind of your baseline Caleb Williams take.
Yeah, so I watched Caleb Williams in his first game ever when I didn't know who Caleb Williams was, when he came in relief in the Red River Shootout and led a brilliant comeback as a true freshman with his arms and his legs. And I said, oh, well, that already tells me that unless something drastic happens to him, this is an NFL player. He then followed that up by his first year at USC, having, in my opinion, one of the best collegiate seasons from a prospect perspective, where it's like, oh, this is translatable to the NFL, I'd ever seen. And from that moment forward, I do the Mahomes Mountain thing, which is, a kind of contemporaneous ranking of NFL quarterbacks every week during the football season on First Things First. And I started putting Caleb Williams on there, and people got mad at me. And I was like, no, I'm not saying eventually, I'm saying right now he'd be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think that his struggles this year were wildly overrated. I think that a good way to tell how good a player is the majority of their praise or the majority of their criticism have nothing to do with actual football. So like people who love JJ McCarthy, you know what they talk about? How firm of a handshake he has and what a great man he is. What they don't like, oh, he throws an amazing spiral. And people who don't like Caleb Williams, you know what they don't talk about? Here's these plays he can't run. They say, oh, he's our first, Gen Z quarterback, and we don't like that part about him. So I think that in my time watching and covering the NFL, he's the best prospect since Luck. And I think he's a better prospect than Luck. I thought Trevor was the best prospect since Luck. I think he's a better prospect than both of them. Now, obviously, Mahomes has been in there. Those guys were, Mahomes, the greatest player I've ever seen. He was not a better prospect than Caleb Williams. And so that's how I feel about it. And I think that he's very fortunate that the Bears are the team drafting there, because the Bears have the number one pick. You guys, obviously, your audience knows this, but not because they were terrible. The Bears were, below average last year, but they were, in the meaty middle of the league. They have this because the Panthers were the worst team in football. So I think it's a great spot, a great, great spot. And I think he'll be in the playoffs next year. I'd be disappointed if he's not.
I mean, when you talk about Caleb Williams' moxie, which I think is another thing that rubs people the wrong way at times, do you think that is actually a perfect fit here in Chicago? I mean, all we ever hear about in terms of the Chicago Bears is the 85 Bears. But they did a Super Bowl shuffle song, well before they actually won that Super Bowl. And it's been so long that we've kind of forgotten our ways a little bit here in Chicago. And we all admired Justin Fields for his, calm demeanor. Yeah. We revered Derrick Rose for that silent assassin kind of approach. But this guy, he wants all the smoke. He's on Twitter clapping back at people. He's liking tweets where people talk shit about him. This guy seems like he might be a good fit for the city.
So, I don't know the city obviously as well as you guys, but I'll take it kind of similar thought process, but slightly different direction. And I'll actually use an analogy to my wife, given the situation we were talking about at the beginning of this. Personal anecdote here. When my wife and I got together, she already had 2 young children who I since adopted. The reason I say that is most people, when they go into marriage, a lot of things about your spouse. You're totally blind on if they're a good parent. I was really lucky in that I actually got to know with crystal clarity what type of parent she was and how good of a parent she was. Caleb is the first quarterback we've ever had that I can think of that we know how he'll act when he's rich and famous, because he's been it for a year. He's not going to lose. Now, you might say, yeah, he seems like sometimes a bit of a prick or maybe a bit of a diva. But what's not going to happen is he goes off the deep end. What's not going to happen is he stops caring about the game. The guy already had that sweet-ass condo in L.A., was in the Heisman House commercials, was making millions of bucks, and was crying because losing hurt him so badly. So that is like a new kind of unintended consequence of the NIL world is for these top guys, you have less of a concern that the money is going to drastically change them. And so I think that's a positive. I think it's fair to say, franchise quarterback, do I want him, clapping back at people on Twitter? Probably not. But to me, that is such a minor concern when like the other top quarterbacks' concerns are, it is JJ McCarthy. In the biggest games of the year, the team was like, anything but you throw the football. Jaden Daniels, you weigh less than every person talking right now, including Hogue. Okay, Drake May, were you bad last year? Like, those are the questions there. With Caleb, it's like, can he be a little immature on social media? And, does losing hurt him too much? It's just a no-brainer to me. A total no-brainer.
Oh, my God, he had an emotion. That's terrible. Let's do the Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, Bears, Caleb comparison. Obviously,
Sure.
It's way too tall to say that Caleb's ever going to come close to Patrick. Let me say that first. But I think it's similar in that Kansas City had Alex Smith, which is also different than Justin, but like the Chiefs fans had never experienced a good quarterback unless you want to count Joe Montana for a cup of coffee. Yeah. Bears fans are in this land where Jay Cutler was here for a decade, and he's still not the all-time single-season leading passing person in Bears history. And so now there's like this thing, like there's a moderate like worry that Caleb's not going to be that. When did you know, as a guy who came out of the womb and rooted for the Chiefs and cared more about that than anything else in all your sports world, when did you realize that Patrick was that guy? And when did like the Chiefs fans sort of embrace that, oh my God, we have him?
Okay, so the first time that I got because when they drafted him, I was bummed because I wanted Deshaun. I didn't think I didn't kill it, but when they trade up to get a quarterback, keep in mind, before Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs had gone 30 years without winning a single game by a quarterback they drafted. It was Todd Blackledge to Patrick Mahomes. Every game won was by usually a Niners former backup or starter in Steve Bono or Elvis Gerbach or Joe Montana or Alex Smith, all those guys. Obviously, Trent Green had a nice run in Kansas City. But there is, and you guys can pull it up, he threw a ball in Atlanta in the preseason, 77 yards in the air, and Tyreek caught it, and I almost passed out. And I remember the TV show had just started, and I don't remember. I think that was when he was a rookie, when he wasn't even playing yet. I'm not sure about that part of it, but I remember seeing that and being like, okay, that's something. Tamba Ali, the former Chiefs, really solid outside, kind of Montez Sweat type, really, outside backer, edge rusher, came on our show between his rookie year and his second when he took over and said, hey, guys, I know you're going to say it's crazy, but we have Brett Favre. And I was like, okay, well, that's exciting. And that was just because of the guts he throws. But the moment is the game that Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL in week 2 of his rookie season, of Mahomes' rookie season. There's a play on the right end zone, if you're watching, where he twirls to his left, twirls back to his right, is running on the sideline, and then flings it for a touchdown. And what is so perfect about that being the moment, and that is truly the moment, Caleb has a play exactly like that from the second or third week this season. Caleb is stylistically the most similar quarterback to Patrick Mahomes we've seen. He's the first one that is, and now I know he says he's Aaron Rodgers is his guy, but he's the same height as Mahomes. He's the same weight as Mahomes. Maybe part of it is the complexion in my eyes. I don't know where my brain is associating it, but stylistically it's similar. And where it's also similar is Caleb last year, Mahomes' whole collegiate career, they knew if we don't score a touchdown every time we have the ball, we're going to lose. So I'm going to take chances. I'm going to try to extend plays. And so that for me was when I knew.
Well, I mean, they both were coached by Cliff Kingsbury as well. And when we were at the Combine, I asked Ryan Poles straight up, does he remind you of Patrick Mahomes? And he didn't say no.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
What was his exact response? It was like parts of him.
He's like, there are similarities.
There are some similarities. Nick, you do mock drafts. I hope people know that watching.
Yeah.
The mock drafts. You had one
3.0's out.
3.0 is out. You had the Bears trading up to number 5. I think you had him giving up, obviously, the 9th pick, but also next year.
And then also the second from Carolina.
Yeah.
And there was a little, I thought, poetry to that, because then that trade, you're getting Caleb and Marvin, and you can really, I think maybe you'd have to give up a little more than that. It works on the draft value charts, but I think maybe you'd have to give up a little more, but that's what I had. But go ahead.
And I love like kind of the storyline with that too, because you're right.
Yes.
That's the
It would be
haul.
like the exclamation point on everything that came together. You just got Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. You're doing a great job of making everybody watch this show very, very happy, I think. But just explain what you were thinking there. Bears trading up, because most people think they'll probably trade back.
Okay, so I get the trade back part of it, because I have become a mock draft sicko the last 2 years. Ever since I sent a mock draft to Brett Veach, and he like critiqued it and told me what he liked and didn't like, I'm like, all right, I'm all in now. I got a direct pipeline to the guy making the picks for my team. I'm going to help. When we win another Super Bowl with one of the guys that I mock drafted in the 5th round, I am really taking ownership. So I've just become, I do just the Chiefs mock draft. I pick different teams and do it. So the Bears sneakily, despite the Caleb trade, as you guys know, don't have a ton of capital in this year's draft. I shouldn't call it the Caleb trade, the Bryce Young trade. After the opening few rounds. Now, next year they have that extra pick and all of that. Well, you guys have like 199, and then your next pick is 77, or maybe I'm forgetting one because of the sweat.
75 and
75.
122.
Yeah.
Okay, 75. Right. All right. So I understand the idea of trade back, and in a lot of scenarios, it makes a ton of sense. It also makes sense. Maybe you just stay there, and if you stay there, you are basically guaranteed to get either the 3rd wide receiver in a 3 great wide receiver draft, the 2nd defensive player taken, or the 2nd offensive lineman taken. Like, you're guaranteed one of those situations, and maybe the 1st in either of those spots. But in this version, quarterbacks go 1 through 4. And if quarterbacks go 1 through 4, then I think there is a real argument to be made that the Chargers would be open for business, but not wanting to move down a ton. That the Chargers would say, hey, I think Harbaugh wants to build up that offensive line, but you can't really take Joe Alt at 5 if you're the Chargers, when the one spot on your O-line you already have his left tackle and Marvin Harrison's there. And so I think there's an argument to be made that the Bears could use next year's draft capital to move up. And one of the other arguments for it is yes, it's about just winning football games, but there is also a weird dynamic in Chicago, and I'm aware of this because of your guys' show and because of my buddy Danny Parkin's show, where a lot of people love Justin. And so it is a sneaky, and most number 1 pick quarterbacks, the fans hated the quarterback there before because that's how you got the number 1 pick. So if you show anything, they're like, we're in. I think it's sneaky important that Caleb start really well. And so if you want to mortgage a bit of draft equity to get him, what I think would instantly be the best wide receiving core in football, with Marvin, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen as an overqualified 3. I think that makes sense. You can also make the argument, just stay there at 9 and get Rome Odunze, you know what I mean, and then keep that pick. But I think Marvin is significantly better than any of the other receivers, so it'd be worth to me that would be worth a consideration.
I mean, he just keeps on tagged with, when you say Marvin, they say he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, which is why I would give up the 2nd round pick from the Panthers next year to get him. Nick's got to go, but go ahead.
Yeah, just last thing for you, Nick.
I got 2 more minutes. It's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead. You guys can go
so
around
last
the
thing
horn
for
one
you
more time.
is, because Carm told me this earlier, I heard you like the over on 8.5 wins for the Bears, and it's sort of related to what you're saying right here. Give Caleb everything possible to get off to a good start. Where are you at on just like the Bears prospects for this upcoming season?
So I think a couple things. And one is, by the way, shout out to Ronald Kreider, because he's exactly right. That was the other reason I had him do it, was the Bears 60 years ago had 2 top 5 picks and took Butkus and Sayers back to back for the greatest first round any team has ever had ever. The Ravens got Ogden and Ray Lewis in the same first round. The Steelers, in I think 74, got 4 Hall of Famers in a draft, but they weren't all obviously in the first round. It would just be kind of a iconic thing to be able to do. Here's where I'm at on the Bears. I think they're good. And I think that there is not, I think there is a weird, Green Bay has a lot of belief for a team that no one believed in, when they woke up Thanksgiving morning. Now, give them credit for what they did from Thanksgiving morning to the end of the year. And I wonder if there's a little Detroit regression potential. And so, point is, I just think the Bears are a 10-win team. I think that if you were drafting the third quarterback in this draft and you had the 9th overall pick, I'd say, well, that's worth a win. And you won 7 games last year. I think you're drafting an instant, above average quarterback. The defense was good once you added Sweat. Like, you got money. You guys know all these things. And so I think the Bears are just in a really strong position. And I think the Packers are a touch overvalued because I don't know that I trust their offensive line. I don't know that I trust their defense at all. And I think that there might be a little bit of Jordan Love, combo between who he was at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. I don't think it's going to be a direct progression. And so for all those reasons, I think the Bears are a viable contender to win the division. I really do.
All right, Nick's got to go do First Things First. Check it out later today. And so we won't talk about why he's been lying to the public forever about LeBron and really the first time when he was a Knicks fan.
I wore a Jordan shirt.
Buddy, hold on. I do have one question for you, and then I'm going to go. For you Jordan lunatics, I'm just curious, and this should really put you guys in the argument spin cycle, okay? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Is it by your guys' math, just so I'm clear, bad for LeBron if he beats the defending champions Denver Nuggets when he's in year 21 at age 39, and then in the next round beats Kevin Durant, and then in the next round beats Luka Doncic, and then is out of gas and loses to the Celtics? By your guys' perverse losses only count in the finals math, is the best thing for him to lose to win the finals, and the next best thing is to lose to Jokic in round 1 where no one blames him, rather than beat Jokic and lose in the finals?
No, so it's funny that you say that because, hey, you're talking to Carm, Nick. If MJ had blown out his knee after the 90 season, I would be sitting here today and telling you he was the greatest player of all time. No one would agree with me, but I would be right. And I will.
Okay. All right, that's not really an answer. That's fine, though.
But it's not. But
that is the strongest argument Nick has made on the LeBron art. I will admit that the amount of finals he's gotten to should not count against him just because he lost.
In a weird way, for you, like for some of this finals 4 and 6 in the finals thing, it helps LeBron that last year he got swept by Jokic. If you believe he would have been out of gas and lost to the Heat, then it's good he got swept. It doesn't make any sense. Now I really do got to go. I'm glad we got a Jordan LeBron thing in there. I'll talk to you guys again. See ya.
Nick, show's the best. Talk to you later.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicky.
you. First
Appreciate
things
it.
first.
We all city like the mayor.